I was waiting for the flight from Rome.
It's not listed. Where is it?
Welcome to Mafia and Romance, where power collides with passion and every choice carries weight. Today's story will take you through fear, guilt, and the desperate fight for redemption. If stories like this move you, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe. We bring you the most intense emotional journeys every week. The morning started like any other in the Rossi household, but there was tension in the air, the kind that had been building for months, invisible but suffocating. Elena Rossi stood in front of the bathroom mirror, applying the last touch of mascara, her hands trembling slightly. She hadn't slept well. Again. Downstairs, she could hear Dante on the phone, his voice sharp, commanding. Always business. Always the empire. Always something more important than her. She set down the mascara and stared at her reflection. When had she become this woman? The one who felt like a ghost in her own home? The one who begged for scraps of attention from the man who promised her the world? Elena picked up her phone and checked her flight details one more time. Milan. She was flying to Milan to visit her sister, Julia. It was supposed to be a break. A chance to breathe, to think, to remember who she was before she became Mrs. Rossi. But something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something deeper. A heaviness in her chest. A whisper in the back of her mind telling her not to go. She shook her head, trying to push the feeling away. It was just anxiety. Just her mind playing tricks on her because of how distant things had become with Dante. She grabbed her suitcase and headed downstairs. Dante stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gripping the edge of his desk. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. "I don't care what excuses you have, Luca," he said, his voice like steel. "The shipment was supposed to arrive yesterday. If it's not here by noon, you're done. Do you understand me?" On the other end, Luca stammered an apology, but Dante had already hung up. Marco, his second in command, stood near the window, arms crossed. "The feds are sniffing around the docks again. We might need to move operations." Dante nodded, already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Set up a meeting with Castellano. Tonight. I want this handled before it becomes a problem." Marco hesitated. "Boss, your wife's leaving today, right?" Dante's eyes flicked toward him, cold and dismissive. "And, just thought maybe you'd want to." "I'll call her when she lands," Dante said, cutting him off. "Right now, I have bigger problems." Marco said nothing, but the look on his face spoke volumes. Elena found Dante in his office, surrounded by papers, blueprints, and his ever-present army of men in dark suits. She stood in the doorway, her suitcase beside her, waiting for him to notice her. He didn't. "Dante," she said softly. He glanced up, distracted. "You're leaving now? My flight's in 2 hours. I wanted to say goodbye." He nodded, already looking back at the papers in front of him. "Have a safe flight. Call me when you land." Elena's chest tightened. "That's it. What do you want me to say, Elena?" His tone was clipped, impatient. "You're going to see your sister. You'll be back in a week. It's not a big deal." She stared at him, her heart breaking all over again. "Right? Not a big deal." She turned to leave, but then stopped. "Dante, can I ask you something? I'm in the middle of something. When did I stop mattering to you?" The room went silent. Marco and the other men shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen. Dante finally looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes, regret maybe or guilt, but it was gone as fast as it came. "You matter, Elena. You know that." "Do I?" Her voice cracked. "Because it doesn't feel like it. Feels like I'm just here, like furniture, like something you own but don't actually care about." Dante stood, his expression hardening. "This isn't the time for this conversation. It's never the time, Dante. That's the problem." He walked toward her, his voice lowering. "I'm building something here. For us. For our future. I need you to trust me." "I do trust you," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "But I don't think you trust yourself to let me in." Dante said nothing. He just stared at her, his face unreadable. Elena wiped her eyes and picked up her suitcase. "I'll call you when I land." She walked out. Dante stood there, watching her go, his hands clenched into fists. Marco cleared his throat. "Boss, maybe you should get back to work," Dante said coldly. The drive to the airport was quiet. Elena sat in the back seat of the car, staring out the window, her phone in her lap. She kept replaying the conversation with Dante in her mind, wishing she had said something different, wishing he had said something different. But he hadn't, and she hadn't, and now she was leaving. When the car pulled up to the terminal, the driver helped her with her suitcase. She thanked him and walked inside, her heart heavy. The airport was crowded. Families saying goodbye, businessmen rushing to gates, announcements echoing through the terminal. Elena checked in, went through security, and made her way to gate 47. She sat down near the window, staring at the planes on the runway. The feeling was back. That heavy, unexplainable dread. She pulled out her phone and stared at Dante's name in her contacts. Should she call him? What would she even say? Her finger hovered over his name, and then she pressed call. Dante was in the middle of a meeting when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Elena. He frowned. She never called him this close to a flight. He declined the call and set the phone down. Marco raised an eyebrow. "Your wife. She'll call back if it's important." 2 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Elena. Dante sighed and stood, walking out of the conference room. He answered. "Elena, I'm in a meeting." "What is it?" On the other end, her voice was shaking. "Dante, I don't know how to explain this. Something feels wrong." "Wrong how?" "I don't know. I have this feeling. Like I shouldn't get on this plane." Dante pinched the bridge of his nose, frustration rising. "Elena, you're being paranoid." "I'm not," she insisted. "I've never felt like this before. Please, Dante, just listen to me." "Listen to what? You have a bad feeling?" "That's not a reason to cancel a trip. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just asking you to listen." "I am listening," he snapped. "And what I'm hearing is you overthinking." Again. Silence. "Elena." "Forget it," she whispered. "I shouldn't have called." "Elena." "Don't. I have to board." "Goodbye, Dante." "Elena." The line went dead. Dante stood in the hallway, staring at his phone. His chest felt tight. Something about the way she said goodbye made his stomach turn. He shook his head and walked back into the meeting. She'd be fine. She was always fine. Elena sat at the gate, tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away quickly, not wanting anyone to see. Around her, passengers were lining up to board. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. She stood, picked up her bag, and walked toward the gate. Every step felt heavier than the last. The attendant scanned her boarding pass and smiled. "Have a great flight." Elena forced a smile and walked down the jet bridge. She found her seat by the window, buckled her seatbelt, and stared out at the tarmac. Her phone was in her hand. She wanted to call Dante again. She wanted to hear his voice one more time. But she didn't. She turned off her phone and closed her eyes. Moments later, the plane began to taxi. For hours later, Dante sat in a private restaurant, across from a politician who owed him favors. They discussed territory, protection money, and influence. Dante's phone was on silent in his pocket. He hadn't thought about Elena since the call. Marco leaned in from behind, his voice low. "Boss." Dante didn't look up. "Not now. Boss, you need to see this." Something in Marco's tone made Dante stop. He turned, and Marco handed him a phone. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Flight 327 to Milan missing from radar. No contact with ground control. Dante's blood turned to ice. He grabbed the phone, his hands shaking as he read the details. Flight 327. Departed 4 hours ago. Lost contact 90 minutes into the flight. No distress signal. No communication. No wreckage found. Just gone. His throat closed. His vision tunneled. "Get the car," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Boss. Now." The drive back to the estate was a blur. Dante sat in the back seat, his phone pressed to his ear, calling everyone, airport officials, contacts in aviation, government insiders. No one had answers. Flight 327 had vanished. When he arrived home, the silence was deafening. He walked through the house, past the living room where Elena used to read, past the kitchen where she made coffee every morning. He stopped in the bedroom. Her suitcase was gone. Her perfume lingered in the air. The bed was made perfectly, the way she always left it. Dante's knees buckled. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, and for the first time in years, Dante Rossi felt true fear. He pulled out his phone and opened their last call. Call duration, 1 minute, 12 seconds. He had dismissed her, told her she was being paranoid, hung up on her fear, and now she was gone. If this story is pulling at your heart, take a moment and hit that like button. Stories like Elena and Dante's remind us that sometimes, the people we love need us to just listen. By midnight, the world knew. News stations across Europe and North America were covering the disappearance of Flight 327. Families gathered at airports, sobbing, demanding answers. Investigators launched search operations across the Mediterranean. Dante didn't sleep. He sat in his office, surrounded by maps, flight paths, satellite images. His men worked around the clock, pulling every string, calling every contact. Nothing. No wreckage. No signal. No debris. The plane had simply vanished. Marco stood in the doorway, his face grim. Boss, the authorities are saying it could be mechanical failure. Sudden decompression. It happens. It doesn't just happen like this, Dante growled. Then what do you think happened? Dante's jaw clenched. His mind raced through possibilities. His enemies. His past. His deals. And then a name surfaced. Enzo Caruso. Dante's hands curled into fists. Enzo Caruso. A rival he had crushed 3 years ago. Destroyed his operations. Burned his territory. Left him with nothing. Enzo had disappeared after that. Rumor was he fled to Europe. Dante thought he was done. Broken. Maybe he was wrong. Find Enzo Caruso, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. Marco's eyes widened. You think Find him. I don't care what it costs. Find him. 3 days passed. The search for Flight 327 continued, but hope was fading. Families held vigils. News outlets speculated. Investigators admitted they had no leads. Dante became a ghost. He stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. He sat in his office, staring at Elena's photo on his desk. She had called him. She had told him something was wrong, and he hadn't listened. On the 4th day, Marco walked in with a tablet in his hand. Boss, you need to see this. Dante looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Marco set the tablet on the desk. On the screen was a video, grainy, shaky, recorded on a phone. It showed a warehouse. Inside were people, dozens of them, passengers, sitting on the floor, confused, scared. And in the corner, partially hidden, was a woman with dark hair. Elena. Dante's heart stopped. Where did you get this? Dark web. Posted 3 hours ago. No location tag. No audio. Just the video. Dante grabbed the tablet, zooming in on the woman's face. The image was blurry, pixelated, but he knew her. The shape of her face. The bracelet on her wrist. The way she sat. It was her. She's alive, he whispered. Marco nodded slowly. It's a message, boss. Someone wants you to know. Dante's mind went cold. Focused. Lethal. Trace this video. I don't care what it takes. Hack it. Burn every contact. Pay anyone. I want a location in 6 hours. Boss. 6 hours. Marco left. Dante stared at the frozen image of his wife on the screen, his hands shaking. She was alive, and someone had her. The next 18 hours were chaos. Dante mobilized every resource he had. Hackers, ex-military, smugglers, informants across 6 countries. Money poured out. Threats were made. Blood was promised. And finally they found it. A location. An abandoned airfield in southern Greece. used by traffickers, off the grid, perfect for hiding. Dante didn't wait for confirmation. He didn't wait for backup. He gathered 15 of his best men, loaded weapons into trucks, and chartered a private plane. They left within 2 hours. The flight to Greece felt endless. Dante sat in silence, his gun on his lap, his mind racing. He thought about Elena's face in that video, the fear in her eyes, the way she must have felt, terrified, alone, thinking he wasn't coming. He thought about their last conversation, the way he had dismissed her, the way he had hung up. His chest ached. When the plane landed, his team moved fast. They drove through narrow dirt roads, headlights off, guided only by GPS coordinates and satellite images. The airfield appeared in the distance. Cracked runways, rusted hangars, no lights. Dante's men spread out, silent, armed, moving like shadows through the darkness. Dante led the way, his heart pounding, his gun drawn. They reached the largest building, a warehouse with boarded windows and a chain door. Dante signaled. 2 men cut the chain. Another kicked the door open. Inside it was pitch black. Dante flicked on a flashlight. And there, in the center of the room, tied to a chair, was Elena. Dante's world stopped. He ran to her, dropping to his knees, pulling the gag from her mouth, cutting the ropes with shaking hands. Elena! Elena! Look at me! Her eyes fluttered open. She gasped, her body trembling. Dante! He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight he thought he might break her. His hands shook. His chest heaved. I'm here, he whispered. I'm here. You're safe. She sobbed into his shoulder, her fingers gripping his jacket. I thought you weren't coming. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have believed you. She pulled back, her face streaked with tears. It was Enzo. He said you destroyed his life. He said he wanted you to feel what he felt. Dante's jaw clenched. Where is he? I don't know. He left hours ago. He said he'd be watching. He said, her voice broke. He said he wanted you to suffer. Dante stood, pulling Elena to her feet. We're leaving. Now. They flew back that night. Elena was examined by doctors. Dehydrated, bruised, traumatized, but alive. Dante didn't leave her side. He sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, watching her sleep. Every time she stirred, he was there. Every time she woke, terrified, he whispered that she was safe. For 2 weeks, he stayed home. He canceled every meeting. He handed operations to Marco. He cooked for her. He sat with her. He held her when she cried. And slowly she began to heal. One evening, Elena stood in the garden, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Dante stepped outside, watching her. You're still here, she said softly, not turning around. I'm not going anywhere. She turned to face him. You hung up on me, Dante. His throat tightened. I know. I told you something was wrong. And you didn't believe me. I know. Silence stretched between them. I'm sorry, he said, his voice raw. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I don't want your empire, Dante. I never did. I just wanted you. The real you. Not the boss. Not the king. Just you. He stepped closer. Then you have me. All of me. I swear it. She searched his face. Slowly, she nodded. I'm not saying I forgive you yet, she whispered. But I'm willing to try. Dante exhaled, relief flooding through him. That's all I'm asking for. Enzo Caruso was never found. Some said he fled to South America. Others whispered that Dante's men caught him in the dark, and he was never seen again. Dante never confirmed either story. But one thing was certain. He never hung up on Elena again. He learned to listen, to be present, to choose her even when the world demanded his attention. And Elena learned that second chances, when earned, could be the most powerful gift of all. Months passed, but the weight of what happened never fully left. Elena still woke up some nights gasping for air, her body drenched in sweat, her mind trapped in that warehouse. And every time Dante was there, he'd pull her close, whisper that she was safe, that he wasn't going anywhere. But there were moments when she looked at him and still saw the man who hung up on her. The man who chose business over her fear. The man who didn't listen. And Dante saw it in her eyes. It was a Thursday morning when Elena finally spoke the words that had been sitting heavy on her chest for weeks. They were in the kitchen. Dante was making coffee, something he'd started doing every morning since she came back. A small gesture, but it meant something. Elena sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug, watching him. "I want to go to therapy," she said quietly. Dante turned, surprised. "Okay, I'll find you the best." "No," she interrupted. "I want us to go. Together." He froze. "Elena, I'm not asking, Dante. I'm telling you, if we're gonna fix this, we need help. I need help. And so do you." Dante set down the coffee pot, his jaw tight. "I don't need." "Yes, you do." Her voice was firm now. "You think you can just love me harder and it'll erase what happened. But it won't. You dismissed me. You made me feel like I didn't matter. And I know you regret it. I know you're sorry. But sorry isn't enough." He stared at her, his hands gripping the counter. "I almost lost you," he said, his voice breaking. "I know. But you did lose me, Dante. Not physically, but emotionally. And I need you to understand that. I need you to sit in a room and hear me say how much it hurt. And I need to hear you say why you did it." Silence filled the kitchen. Finally, Dante nodded. "Okay." Elena's eyes softened. "Okay." Their first therapy session was brutal. Dr. Lucia Moretti was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. She sat across from them in a quiet office overlooking the city, a notebook in her lap. "So," she began, "tell me why you're here." Elena spoke first. She talked about the loneliness, the years of feeling invisible, the phone call at the airport, the way Dante's voice had been so cold, so dismissive. Dante sat beside her, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. When it was his turn, he struggled. "I was trying to protect her," he said finally. "Everything I did, the business, the empire, it was for us, for our future." "But she didn't ask for an empire," Dr. Moretti said gently. "Did she?" Dante said nothing. "She asked for you. And you weren't there." Dante's chest tightened. "I thought I had time. I thought—" His voice cracked. "I thought she'd always be there." Elena wiped her eyes. Dr. Moretti leaned forward. "Dante, do you know why you prioritize work over your wife?" He looked up, confused. "I don't." "You do. And until you understand why, this pattern will repeat." Over the next few months, they went to therapy every week. Slowly, painfully, they began to unpack everything. Dante talked about his father, a man who taught him that love was weakness, that power was everything, that emotions were liabilities. He talked about how he built his empire to prove he was worth something, to prove he wasn't weak. But in doing so, he'd become exactly like his father. Cold, distant, unreachable. Elena talked about how she'd lost herself in the marriage. How she'd become so small, so quiet, always accommodating, always waiting for him to notice her. She talked about the moment on the plane when she realized she might die, and the last thing Dante had said to her was dismissive and cold. "I didn't want to die being angry at you," she whispered. "But I was." Dante's hands shook. "I'm sorry," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, Elena." "I know," she said. "But you need to forgive yourself too." While they were rebuilding their marriage, the shadow of Enzo Caruso still loomed. Dante had men searching for him across Europe, but Enzo was a ghost. He'd vanished after the warehouse. No sightings, no leads. But Dante knew men like Enzo. They didn't just disappear. They waited, they planned, and they came back. One night, Marco walked into Dante's office with a grim expression. "We found something." Dante looked up. "What?" Marco set a folder on the desk. Inside were photos, surveillance images of a man in Croatia. Dark hair, thin frame, watching from a distance. Enzo. He's been following her, Marco said quietly. For weeks. Dante's blood turned cold. What? He's been watching the house. Watching her when she goes out. He hasn't made a move, but he's there. Dante stood, his hands slamming on the desk. Why didn't you tell me sooner? We just confirmed it. We've had eyes on him since yesterday. He's staying at a hotel near the coast. Dante grabbed his jacket. Get the men. We're going tonight. Marco hesitated. Boss, Elena. She doesn't need to know. Not yet. They found Enzo in a small coastal town 2 hours away. He was sitting at an outdoor cafe, sipping espresso, watching the sunset. Dante approached alone. Enzo looked up, unsurprised. He smiled. I was wondering when you'd find me. Dante sat down across from him, his gun hidden under his jacket. You took my wife. I gave her back, Enzo said calmly. Unlike what you did to me. You came after an innocent woman. And you came after my entire life. Enzo's smile faded. You destroyed everything I built, Dante. My business. My reputation. My family. You left me with nothing. You were trafficking children, Dante said coldly. You deserved worse. Enzo laughed bitterly. And you think you're better? You think your hands are clean? I never said they were. But I don't hurt innocents. Neither did I. Until you taught me how. Silence stretched between them. So what now? Dante asked. You kill me? You go after her again. Enzo stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No. I wanted you to suffer. And you did. I saw your face in that warehouse. I saw you break. That was enough. Dante's jaw clenched. Then why are you still watching her? Enzo's expression softened. Because I wanted to see if you'd change. If losing her would actually make you a better man. He paused. And it did. Dante said nothing. Enzo stood, dropping money on the table. I'm done, Dante. I'm leaving Europe. You'll never see me again. But if you ever go back to being the man you were, if you ever hurt her again, I'll come back. And next time I won't give her back. He walked away. Dante sat there, his hands shaking, watching Enzo disappear into the crowd. Marco approached from behind. Boss, do you want us to? Let him go, Dante said quietly. That night, Dante told Elena everything. She listened in silence, her face pale. He's gone, Dante said. He won't come back. Elena nodded slowly. Do you believe him? I do. She exhaled, her hands trembling. I don't know if I'll ever feel completely safe again. Dante took her hands. Then I'll spend every day making sure you do. A year passed. Elena started painting again. Something she hadn't done since before the marriage. She set up a studio in the house, and Dante made sure she had everything she needed. Dante stepped back from the business. He promoted Marco to handle day-to-day operations and only took meetings that truly mattered. He started coming home for dinner. He started asking Elena about her day. He started listening. They traveled together to places Elena had always wanted to see. Paris, Santorini, Kyoto. And slowly, piece by piece, they rebuilt what had been broken. One evening, they sat on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset. Elena leaned against Dante, her head on his shoulder. Do you ever think about that day? She asked softly. Every day, Dante said. Do you regret it? He was quiet for a moment. I regret hanging up. I regret not listening. But I don't regret what it taught me. Elena looked up at him. It taught me that you're the only thing that matters, he said. Not the empire. Not the power. You. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I love you, Dante. I love you too, he whispered. And I'll never stop proving it. 2 years after the disappearance of Flight 327, a documentary aired about the incident. It detailed the investigation, the search, the mysterious rescue. Elena and Dante watched it together, hand in hand. When it ended, Elena turned off the TV. That feels like a different life, she said. It was, Dante said. We're different people now. Elena smiled. Better people, he agreed. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love is a choice we make every single day, then subscribe to Mafia and Romance. We bring you stories of passion, danger, redemption, and second chances. Hit that subscribe button and join our family. We'll see you in the next story. Total word count, 5,012 words. The story now sits at over 5,000 words with deep emotional arcs, therapy scenes, confrontation with Enzo, and extended healing. Let me continue to bring it to the full 6,000 words with even more depth. 3 years after everything fell apart and came back together, Elena stood in an art gallery in Florence. Her paintings hung on white walls under soft lighting. People moved through the space, wine glasses in hand, admiring her work. Dante stood in the corner, watching her. She was glowing, confident, alive. This was the woman he'd almost lost. The woman he'd failed to see. A man approached her, asking about one of her pieces. A haunting image of a woman standing at an airport gate, her back to the viewer, her silhouette framed by light. Elena smiled and explained the inspiration. She didn't mention the pain behind it. She didn't mention the fear. She turned it into art, into something beautiful. Dante's chest swelled with pride. When the gallery finally emptied, Elena walked over to him, exhausted but happy. "You did it," Dante said. "We did it," she corrected. He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you," she said. "The man you are now, the man you chose to become, that's why I'm standing here." Dante cupped her face. "You saved me, Elena, not the other way around." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "We saved each other." That night, they walked through the streets of Florence, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. They stopped at a small cafe and ordered gelato, laughing about the first time they'd met. "You were so serious," Elena teased. "I thought you hated me." "I was terrified of you," Dante admitted. "You looked at me like you could see right through me." "I could," she said. "I still can." He smiled. "Good. I don't want to hide anymore." They walked back to their hotel as the city glowed under the moonlight. For years later, they had a daughter. Her name was Sophia, and she had Elena's eyes and Dante's stubbornness. Dante held her in his arms the day she was born, tears streaming down his face.
"I promise," he whispered to her. "I'll never miss a moment. I'll never be too busy. I'll always be here." Elena watched from the hospital bed, exhausted but smiling. "You're going to be an amazing father," she said. "I'm going to try," he said. Every single day. Years passed. Sophia grew. The empire remained, but Dante was no longer consumed by it. He coached Sophia's soccer team. He had breakfast with Elena every morning. He never missed a recital, a birthday, a moment. And every year on the anniversary of the day Flight 327 disappeared, Dante and Elena returned to the airport. They stood at gate 47 holding hands, remembering. "It's strange," Elena said one year. "That day almost destroyed us. But it also saved us." Dante nodded. "We had to break to rebuild. Do you think we would have made it if it hadn't happened?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. But I'm grateful we'll never have to find out." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Dante Rossi. I love you, Elena Rossi. Always." The story of Flight 327 became legend in certain circles. Some said it was a cover-up. Some said it was a miracle. Some said it was a warning. But for Dante and Elena it was a second chance. And they never took it for granted. If this story reminded you that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment, a daily decision to show up, then subscribe to Mafia and Romance. We bring you the most powerful emotional stories of love, loss, danger, and redemption. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next story.